All right, and I'm silencing you from the beginning of the recording. I thought it's better to do that.
I don't think Chris is here. He seems to have dropped off. Isla.
Sorry,
Oh, he's there,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, I am here. Let me just share my screen one sec. Uh, okay. Can you see that? Oops. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, so thank you, Isla, and thank you, Ruby, for inviting me and Ubele today. So yeah, my name is Christopher Oliver. I'm the Policy and Research Officer at the Ubele Initiative. So the Ubele Initiative is a infrastructure organization, sort of African diasporic-led infrastructure organization based in Wolves Lane in Haringey. But we also work with a sort of strategic alliance of partners across the UK, primarily across sort of 6 English regions. And I'm situated within the sort of community wealth building hub of the Ubele Initiative, and we primarily focus on supporting Black and racially minoritized communities through infrastructural support for sort of asset and enterprise development, and we try and sort of develop our infrastructural support with a foundation of research and community-led research. Up until now, we've sort of worked with associates to deliver research. One of the sort of significant pieces of research that we did, which again was sort of community-led, outside of a sort of educational institute, was a place to call home 1 and 2. A place to call home 1 looked at, surveyed sort of Black organisations across the UK and looked at sort of community asset ownership, but also questions around the sustainability of assets and enterprises, which represent significant sort of community anchor organisations, Black-led community anchor organisations across the UK. And then earlier this year, in January, we launched a place to call home 2, which again was a follow-up, and it sort of looked at the benefits and value of owning community and cultural assets. The reason I mentioned those 2 reports, because it's, as I said, we worked with associates to deliver that research. This research with Co-operatives UK has been one of the first sort of attempts for us to, I guess, have an in-house, like deliver research in-house, and sort of build up the sort of research capacity of the Ubele Initiative in-house. So it's been a really, we're really grateful for the Connect Fund and Co-operatives UK to sort of, I guess, support us on this journey of developing sort of research architecture, research infrastructure, to then build that evidence base. So we've been looking at this question, and Isla gave some sort of background from this Co-operatives UK and Community Shares Unit perspective, and so we've been looking at this question, what are the barriers and opportunities for Black and racially minoritized communities leading community share offers? And much of the work to date has been about sort of building a structure to actually position Ubele within the sort of cooperative space in a way. We've focused on sort of voluntary, like the VCSC sector, for over a decade, but we've operating within the sort of cooperative space is a relatively new undertaking for Ubele. And actually those organizations that featured in A Place to Call Home 1 and 2 tended to be of not cooperatives. They were, community interest companies or, companies limited by guarantee or other sort of legal structures. So a lot of the work has been, building a structure to and positioning Ubele within the sort of cooperative space in order to think about the opportunities of sort of cooperative forms of community ownership for our communities. So as Isla stated, initially we've been doing some desk research, developing a research hypothesis, community engagement, and I wrote an article for Stir to Action with the support of Isla, John Dawson, and Phil Tolber, and that was just again to sort of set the scene. So what we know is that over the past decade, £210 million has been raised via community share offers by cooperatives and community benefit societies from over 130,000 investors. So we can see the sort of opportunities there for community ownership via sort of cooperative and community benefit society models. But as Isla stated, there's sort of disparities in who is investing into cooperatives and community benefit societies, and the leadership of those societies. In A Place to Call Home 2.0, which is the research that I mentioned that was published earlier this year, in our survey of the organizations that we have engaged with the research, we found that just 10% of Black and racially minoritized communities involved in the research actually owned the buildings that they operated out of as community businesses or organizations. So that was quite an important report, which has taken time because this research was launched in November with Cooperatives UK, but this A Place to Call Home research, which provides really important insight to frame the research we're doing with Cooperatives UK, was launched in January this year. So it's taken time to adjust to the sort of insights that this new research from Ubele has produced by my colleague Carl Murray, and thinking and therefore what can we draw from A Place to Call Home, and in relation to some of the information such as this, in order to think about the opportunities for using cooperatives or community benefit societies and indeed community shares to take ownership or expand community ownership of community assets, which tend to be rented or leased by communities. So we've been, digging into some research activities, and essentially, entering into conversation with Black-led or Black and racially minoritized-led cooperative models, cooperatives across the UK, to learn about their journey and to identify any sort of challenges or potential opportunities for building community ownership. And we've come into contact with a range of communities at different stages of their cooperative journey. So identifying newly incorporated cooperatives, organizations attempting to align cooperative design along religious principles, as Isla referenced, and the potential for cooperatives to address sort of racial discrimination within the social care sector. So we delivered a workshop with a group of care workers who, at Space 4 actually, which is a cooperative sort of development agency in Finsbury Park, and these care workers were exploring the potential of a Pan-African cooperative model, care model, and that was in conversation with Equal Care Co-op, who operate across the country, but have a representative in Clapton, and who have been working with some care workers in Clapton of African who have from South Africa or from West Africa, who actually arrived in the UK via the sort of new health and care work visa, post-Brexit health and care work visa, and found themselves being exploited by care agencies, and therefore in an attempt to sort of gain agency over their sort of work conditions, that they were interested in exploring this idea of a sort of Pan-African care co-op, using insights and from the Equal Care Co-op model, which I thought was really interesting. So we've been looking at the different ways that sort of Black and racially minoritized communities use cooperative models, but then also thinking about the challenges and barriers of both sustaining a business, but also accessing various forms of investment, community, such as community shares. So Isla also mentioned the community shares practitioner training, and which I am partaking in along with a cohort of representatives of different cooperatives that I've been in conversation with. And one of the aims of participating in the community shares practitioner training is to both understand the sort of different ways a cooperative I guess can be investment ready, and thinking about what is how can we sort of think about the investment readiness in relation to community shares, when through the lens of different domains such as governance, financial resources, connectedness and engagement in relation to a given locality or a community of interest, operations and infrastructure. What systems do you have in place to sort of manage staff within a cooperative, but how ready are those systems to support a cooperative leading a community share offer, but also to what extent does impact and effectiveness and a demonstration of impact and effectiveness have a bearing on the sort of likelihood of a given community to invest in your community share offer. So we're really interested in thinking through community shares practice, and training to think about both in terms of increasing representation in community shares practitioner training for Black and racially minoritized communities, but also thinking about to what extent we can think through investment readiness and the type of infrastructural support Black and racially minoritized led cooperatives may need in order to lead a community share off. So at present the research hypothesis is increased access to culturally appropriate infrastructural support will reduce the barriers and enhance the opportunities for Black and racially minoritized led cooperatives and community benefit societies to lead community share offers to expand community wealth building. And we're moving into a phase now of testing that research hypothesis through working with or engaging with Black and racially minoritized led cooperatives and community benefit societies through a sort of participatory production of a journal. And this journal has 3 components: a written journal, so a printed booklet, but then also an archive collection and a map. So the journal will report on the work of cooperatives and community benefit societies, but also insights from the community shares training. The associated archive collection is a space where we will hold the sort of research materials such as interview transcripts, photographs, reports, and again, that's to raise awareness but also just to have a repository for the research materials, which can be built upon through in the next stage of the work, and a map. So we've been invited by a Stir to Action, who are the stewards of the Democratic Ownership Matters website, to set up a private network, which includes a forum function to share learning and enable collaboration. I think I've maybe gone on a bit too long, but yeah, thank you for listening. And if you're interested to sort of engage in the research, in the process, then yeah, please do reach out.
Whoops. Thank you so much, Christopher. That's awesome and really interesting to have that kind of wider perspective of using community shared as a way to access this really tricky issue and something that is systemic. I think I'll move questions right to the end so that we have time and everyone has time to do their presentations in full. But now we're going to move on to Kat from GMCVO, and this is going from the kind of wider, much more contextual systemic issues to like how do we tackle EDI within your organisation. So
thanks, Ruby. I'll just share screen. And sorry, I'm squinting a little bit because you can't see me if I sit the other way. Right, can you see the slides, Ruby, or can you see a different screen?
All looks good to me.
Right, good, it worked, sorry. I'm the head of grants, social investment and contracts, but I'm definitely not the head of IT systems because I'm absolutely rubbish at them. So yeah, I'm glad that you actually got to see the slide. So hi everyone, my name's Kat. I just want to quickly talk through the challenge that we experienced in GMCVO, which led us to kind of taking this journey with the Connect Fund and the Diversity Forum. So you might not have heard of GMCVO, but we cover Greater Manchester. We work across different strands, but what we do is we work in social economic inclusion. We want to reduce poverty and inequality across Greater Manchester. And we do this through various ways like policy and research, but our biggest area is grants and social investment. We distribute, we're one of the biggest place-based funders apparently in England now. I'm sure there's others that are coming up fast behind us. And we've been doing this for a long time now, social investment. GMCVO is a charity. We have a board of trustees, and we've been going for 48 years, so quite a long time really. One of the biggest challenges when I came in that I saw was that I'm one of the first female members of the senior management team for decades, and I'm definitely the first disabled female manager on the senior management team. And I started to wonder about what the barriers were for other people receiving this position in the organisation, and why historically GMCVO has been, run by white heterosexual non-disabled men. And if we really represent the communities that we represent across Greater Manchester, which are really diverse, and if we say as a social investor that we want to reduce barriers to people to receive our investors, people from marginalised communities, why aren't we reducing the barriers internally for people to be able to work their way up through the organisation or to come into the organisation? So we'd already done some works in grants and social investment, but what we decided is to actually step back, but step in at the same time and focus on GMCVO first and make some really good changes internally, which will then start the process of every single thing we do, including all external processes, EDI will be embedded into everything that we do. So that's where we came as a starting point. So we started off by forming a steering committee, and it's been an interesting journey for me really as the kind of EDIB lead in this, that I thought there'd be, when you're trying to do something new, sometimes you get a bit of pushback, but it became, I realised really, really quickly in this that a lot of people in GMCVO thought this was really important, and that people had actually tried to make changes before and felt like they didn't have the, the power or the authority to do it themselves. So they tried to do things and then just thought, oh, that's too difficult. It's going to be too difficult. So we started off by putting a call out for a steering committee, and there we all are. There's loads of us, absolutely loads of us. And we represent lots of different lived experiences. Pretty much most of the protected characteristics are represented within the steering committee, and everybody is 100% committed to making this work. And I know I feel really lucky that we're in this position. We're there to shape the work, but it became obvious pretty early on that we probably didn't have a lot of the skills required to do the work that we needed to do. We really needed some help along the way, and we started to have a look around. Well, actually, where do we get this support from? We joined the Diversity Forum first of all. So we joined the Diversity Forum, which I don't know whether you all know about the Diversity Forum. It's a great forum set up originally by social investment business, I think, through funding from the Connect Fund. They support social investors and other organisations across the UK, and I think it is to really commit down and to focus on equity, diversity and inclusion. So that was our starting point, was to join the Diversity Forum. And then we thought, well, how do we get to a place where we need to be internally to make the changes that we need to make? So we applied for funding through the Connect Fund to help us bring in civil society consulting. So they're a great organisation that have done a lot of work in this field. And we realised that the things that we really needed support on was to work through how we make commitments internally to make the change that we need. So we started off a point of recording the demographics of our teams, board and investment committees. So we wanted to have a look at who we are internally in that. And we also gathered social mobility data, because the other members of the management team are really interested in social mobility. And came back that, no surprises, we are a ridiculously diverse organisation, but we've never asked the questions before. Civil society consulting helped to shape a theory of change. So we started off by thinking, what is the problem? and what are the impacts that we want to see as a result of this work. And if you all want to be sent any of this, I can send you it afterwards. I wanted to try and put it on the screen, but it's that big, it only showed a little bit of it. So if any of you do want a copy of any of this, please do let me know and I'll share it with you. We've got some terms of reference for our EDI B. I'll explain the B bit in a second. EDI B steering committee. We've got all of our commitments, and our commitments span work that's going to be delivered over 4 to 5 years. This is a massive journey for us. And we started off by doing just simple things like have a focus on well-being internally, setting up a Teams channel where people across the organisation can say hello to each other on a morning, which didn't exist before, just small wins. And now we're going through a stage of having a full policy review, which is a massive chunk of work, so that we've got a policy that represents each of the protected characteristics, a menopause policy, a care policy, so absolutely every policy that we need to have so that our policies represent the diverse community that we are as well. We've got an external statement. And so there's quite a lot of work that's been done, and we've only been doing this for a year. So we're still quite at the start of it. It's going to take us a long time, and our consultants are about to leave us. They finish next month, but without them, we'd have never have got this far. They've shaped us, they've talked to us, they've put us into an action-orientated group, and they weren't very expensive at all. So it's cost us £30,000 to do this work, and they've just been amazing. So I highly recommend them. Next steps, we've got a staff survey coming out. We're going to have a full report on the progress. Our consultants leave us. We've now recruited an internal equity, diversity, inclusion and belonging champion. I was going to explain belonging. So the belonging came in. When I first came in as a manager, a member of staff left. And I'm very honest about this. They said that they were leaving the organisation because they didn't feel like they belonged. And that upset me so much. I just thought, how can anyone work anywhere where you don't feel like you belong? And so which was one of the reasons why I really thought this work was really important. So now we talk about belonging all the time, and everything we do, we say, will that will that help people feel like they belong? Will that, just constantly talk about it so that people recognize that it's really important for us that everybody can be 100% their whole selves at work all the time. So we've got to work through all of our commitments until they're completed. We review and reflect every month. We meet monthly, and we've got this great team of people, and we wouldn't be where we are without them. And it's been a really interesting journey, and it's one that I never thought we'd get this far, but we still got work to do. And if it wasn't for the Diversity Forum and Connect Fund, we would have never have done it. So just thank you very much. I'll stop there.
Thanks very much. And it really just takes people within the organisation to really want to do it as well. So I think that really comes across, Kat. Thank you. Jo, are you ready to talk to us about what's going on at School for Social Entrepreneurs?
Thanks, Ruby. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm just going to share my screen as well. If I put that on presenter view.
That's working for us, yeah.
Is that okay? Oh, cool. It was slow on my end. Okay, fab. Is that all good? Yeah. So I'm just gonna, that's fine. Hi, my name's Jo. I'm from the School for Social Entrepreneurs. So we're infrastructure. That's gone back. Hang on. Sorry. Sharing issues. We're an infrastructure support body for the social enterprise sector, and I'm having real problems with my screen. Sorry, 2 seconds. Sorry. I think I win on the tech failure, everybody. There we go. I'll start again. Is that working now?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we are based all over the UK. We've been going for about 25 plus years, and our sort of bread and butter is cohort learning programs and grant support for social enterprises. So we sort of work from a startup basis, and then help people sort of launch trading models, build sustainability, and then scale operations. And we sort of came to the Connect Fund after sort of 8 years of delivering our flagship grant product called Match Trading, and like working with diverse and disadvantaged communities, sort of, you know, since we sort of began this product. But really sort of with a question of wanting to really just improve our systems and processes that are behind it to get better at reaching more diverse communities specifically with this product. And we really wanted to work with a sector expert and sort of really dig deep into our own processes. So this project is a labor of love for anyone who loves processes and systems, and for those to sort of create better results. So there was a lot of looking inwards, and there was some work around what we could do to sort of make this product better for the sector, and reach more diverse communities. So I'll give you a bit of background on Match Trading and then sort of go into how the project worked for us. So for those who don't know, Match Trading is a grant investment product that was invented by School for Social Entrepreneurs about 8 years ago. We've delivered it to about 800 or so organisations since then, and our evaluation has shown that against a sort of control group study, it has really good results in increasing income from trading, about sort of double compared to sort of traditional grants. And the idea behind it, and what we find really exciting, is that it allows organisations to develop their own trading base, so they become less dependent on other grant-based products. They increases their agency and power, and allows them to sort of build their own futures and build their own income base. We see it as sitting on this spectrum of financing tools, with like grant product on one side, which we know sort of makes up the majority of our sector sort of finance opportunity, but does sort of come with risk around dependency, and favours those who are really good at bid writing. And then on the other side, the social investment world, which is fantastic, but you know, has shown through the Adebowale report to have less reach into disadvantaged communities overall. Match Trading sits sort of enterprise grant products, so specifically focusing on enterprise development for organisations. It pound for pound releases grants, so it really sort of nudges people to think about how they're sort of earning their own income, take more risks, and we've seen sort of, as I said, some great results. But as part of this project, we really wanted to focus on how we could reach minoritized sectors better. We think it's a sort of critical product to strengthen agencies in those communities, and we really wanted to work to mainstream. We didn't think we could do that without working with a sector expert, and looking into our own processes and systems. So this year-long project was really sort of preparatory work, identifying clear pathways, embedding much stronger EDI infrastructure into our systems, and looking at our data frameworks. On a really high level, we had 3 sort of main deliverables with this project. So we really wanted to work on our sort of comms, narratives and messaging, and making sure that when we were building Match Trading out, it was with an equality lens right from the beginning. And that was, yeah, a really sort of integral part of our work. The second one was looking at our own data frameworks and then shared protocols so that we've got a shared sort of system of understanding with other funders. And then the third one was work developing a collaborative portal and sort of research into that. But for sort of insights into this project, I'm just going to focus on the first two. So digging in a bit more, I guess what was really exciting about this project and what we really enjoyed working on was the partnership with Voice for Change. We had really aligned aims and efforts, and we did some really great work together. So Voice for Change designed a bespoke workshop for us to kick the whole project off, and work with our senior leadership team as well as our EDI working group. We then had some regular outcome focused meetings with Voice for Change over the sort of main course of the project. And then that led to us putting in a sort of robust action plan tracker to embed the changes that we wanted to see across our sort of main teams. So our delivery team, our grant administration team, and our sort of Marcoms teams. And I guess what was really good about this was we've got some, we've had some great initiatives in the past and some really interested thinking around this work that hasn't necessarily gone anywhere. And those systems have never been embedded into what we're doing. And working with Voice for Change as a sort of sector expert, really sort of digging in. We sent them loads of documents, we had loads of conversations, went back and looked over certain aspects really carefully with them, and that really allowed us to sort of embed some of this work into our systems in a way that we just weren't doing before. So it's really sort of shifted the dial on our culture around this work, and how we're sort of tracking and measuring success, which I think has been one of the sort of most important outcomes of this project. And then just sort of dig into a couple of sort of specific learnings. Voice for Change really sort of dug into a lot of our guidance notes, recruitment materials, and we found that we were using a lot of jargon and they were just way too lengthy. So our comms team worked to remove as much as possible. We're now using a lot more plain English, short text, video, and animation where possible, and that's been having some really good effects. Where we've got sort of our grant panels and like interview as to when applications come in. We had like very patchy and ad hoc use of our fellows, which is our sort of grant alumni, to boost outreach in underrepresented areas. So this gave us the opportunity to sort of roll out a much more systemic approach to this, following a pilot. And then we had also patchy sort of systems put in place to make sure that we had really diverse panels for our assessments and interviews. And again, this really allowed us to put a really good system in place to make sure that this was being done consistently and that the effects were being measured. And then when it came to our data systems, which was the sort of second bit of what we looked at, so we went away with our compliance team and our grant administration team and our delivery team and put together a really robust and standardized data model. Again, we worked with the compliance team and some external legal advice to put a shared data protocol in. Voice for Change looked at our application process and our EDI survey numbers, and with their sort of help and some really sort of simple, quick wins, it's given us an 11% increase in EDI questionnaires that are coming back, which is, an amazing sort of, quick win. And we're sort of doing more work on that and sort of cleansing and cleaning data work in the background as well. So yeah, that's sort of a quick overview and sort of some insights that we'll learn. I guess as a next step, we're really excited to bring Voice for Change on and teach them more about actually how to deliver match trading. So this wasn't just a transactional sort of consultancy relationship. There's sort of next exciting steps. So they'll be like delivering match trading hand in hand with us over the next 5 years. So we'll see some really exciting results from that. We've got an action tracker now embedded across our delivery, comms and grants team, with sort of success measures around the data that we're collecting and the sort of reach into minority communities for match trading. So we'll be, even though this is the end of the Connect project for us, it's not the sort of end of this work and how we're measuring it. So yeah, sort of really excited to see where it takes us next and the data that we get back. And equally, if anyone would like any of the slides or more information around match trading, the work that we're doing, more than happy to share anything or send over the deck. Stop sharing.
Thanks very much, Jo. Really interesting. I might kick off with a question for you and Kat just around this, because it's similar in terms of the approach, which is that I should probably know this, but do you have EDI in your role already, or as you two are the ones that leading these projects? What do you think in terms of pushing EDI in an organisation? How important is it to have it in someone's role, written in, or just whether you've got a passionate person that's wanting to drive it? And did that affect, how you could progress on some of the projects?
Start. No, I mean, it's not part of my role. It's something that, but for me, I mean, in the last organisation I worked in, I did a lot of work around equity, diversity, inclusion, especially around hidden disabilities, using my own lived experience, around mental health, using my own lived experience. I tried to engage conversation as much as possible within the organisation and people's experiences, so everybody could learn from each other and that we could have honest conversations about issues that people might find challenging, like menopause and things like that. And I kind of, I feel like it's ingrained in me to challenge systems that I don't think are right, or to, not speak out. And I don't, maybe something I was born with. But I'd love it to stay part of my role, but my role keeps getting bigger and bigger by the month. But now we've got a champion that's taking on the role. They're going to be doing it for 2 years. They're taking it, I'm passing the baton on now. We're hoping that it become a paid role, so we're looking at additional funding. Eventually, we'd love it to be a paid role in the organisation. But yeah, I'll still be there though, in the background, still pointing out inequalities, I'm sure.
Fantastic.
And to answer that question from SSE's sort of side, no, it's not sort of part of my role either. I guess similar to Kat and GMCVO, I think within the sort of last year, the 18 months, we set up an EDI, it's called a working group at SSE, but very, very similar to sort of Kat's experience of the steering group. And then as part of this project, I joined the EDI working group to make sure that we had like a really clear sort of, I guess, comms system of like feeding back the reason why this project was important. And, even though the deliverables of this project were specific to match trading, there was loads that we could apply wider to the organisation. So we centred quite a few of the sort of conversations and actions within the group, around the work of this project. And then the working group itself is made up of senior leadership and a cross-section of staff across divisions. And it's just a really good opportunity for, you know, everyone to feed in. And then I guess the other important thing to say is we don't have a specific EDI role within the organisation, but it is seen as a sort of board priority, and is something that is, you know, fed up and down across the organisation, and across as well. And we sort of really hold ourselves to account on that. But, you know, clearly, you know, especially from a data point of view, we found that there was quite a lot lacking when we started doing this project. So I think it was really timely in terms of, you know, the group that was sort of set up to look at EDI within SSE. And yeah, the sort of actions that we put in place will hopefully improve upon our sort of, you know, ability to see the data inside and outside SSE in terms of the support that we deliver and our sort of staff base, and then how we can sort of continue to track and measure that as well. So yeah, I think this was a really sort of timely project for SSE and something that was needed.
Fab. And then to go to one of the questions that was a little bit earlier from Michelle, I think, yeah. What everyone's been working in partnerships on these projects, so can go to any of the panelists really, but what do you think were the specific elements that made the partnerships successful, or any sort of wins you can really think of? Or no? I don't know if you can't think of it, maybe some from working with your consultants, anything they were doing specifically.
Yeah, sorry.
We're going to name check them as well, because I feel like that was a real win.
That was deep in thought then. So yeah, so we've I mean, we've been working in partnership with through the Diversity Forum. You know, the whole point of the Diversity Forum is that other partners that you're already partnering with in the social investment sector support your EDI journey. So I think it's quite a big question. So that's why I was such in thought. But I mean, civil society consulting have been a great partnership for us, and I didn't really know what to expect at the start of the partnership, and I didn't realise how far we'd get with them. Sadia, who's our main consultant, is from Oldham, based in Oldham. She does this work in Oldham, and having that the consultant working with us that, you know, has lived experience of what it's like to be born in Greater Manchester, who also kind of feeds into the work that we do, was really important to us. That's, you know, it was kind of, we needed that, because I did speak to, you know, a lot of consultants leading up to this work, and they were all brilliant, but I wanted somebody that understood us as well, and the communities that we represent and the communities that we work in. So yeah, I think when you're looking at consultants especially, I think really choosing the one that fits your organisation the best is the correct partnership to take. That makes sense.
And Michelle, should I bring you in just to ask your first question to Chris? Because, you know, I don't need to speak for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was mostly for Chris, about what do you think were the main barriers. So one was kind of information and knowledge, like making the communities aware of those opportunities. But then I was thinking, has anything emerged about kind of the challenges of thinking medium or long term, and so making kind of investments, and even, I guess, creating a cooperative is different from like having your own social enterprise, because you have to agree with others, and so you have to trust people in the medium term. So has anything emerged on that side, well, perceptions and expectations, risk and aversion, and so on?
Yeah, and I think Isla will be able to feed in a little bit potentially. Feel free, but I think in relation to the question before about, and thank you, Michelle, about the benefits of working in partnership. I think principle 6 of cooperative values is is to support cooperatives across the network. And I think although Ubele isn't a cooperative, I think it's been really interesting and working with Cooperatives UK and operating within the cooperative sector, because there is such a sort of readiness of people working within cooperatives to support other cooperatives. So that's, yeah, I've really noticed that there's a lot of solidarity across the network, and Cooperatives UK is an incredible sort of mothership organization that connects, the cooperative sector, and both through training, as I mentioned earlier, but also through events and workshops. So it's been, yeah, it's been, and their expertise as well. So it's been really helpful collaborating with them. And yeah, I think that some of the challenges, I mean, one like quite clear challenge is the fact that, there's a relatively small amount of Black and racially minoritized led cooperatives in the UK. So then identifying the already existing cooperatives is a process in itself, but then and then building relationships in order to sort of conduct the research in a sort of consensual way. But then also thinking about, the sort of how a lot of sort of community assets came into the hands of Black and racially minoritized communities, particularly at this point in time, I'm particularly thinking of African Caribbean communities, and in the sense that, after, for example, the 81 uprisings in the UK, a lot of communities were, I guess, demanded resources, demanded spaces within communities such as Moss Side, such as Brixton, such as Lewisham. So a lot of community assets came into community hands in the wake of sort of protest and sort of anti-racist sort of movements. And we can think about that in relation to after the sort of Black Lives Matter movements of 2020, for example. What's interesting is Black Lives Matter UK is actually a community benefit society, but also the Baobab Foundation, which received an endowment from Lankley and Chase. They are also a community benefit society, and so they both received quite large endowments, again in the wake of I guess anti-racist movements. So in terms of so there's a lot of sort of I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done in order to I guess function as an organization, but then you're also reacting to these external pressures, and that tension can create difficulty in I guess planning and thinking about the future and planning towards a future and because of those pressures. So I think I guess what I'm trying to say is, an insight so far has been how sort of under pressure a lot of the organizations are, in order, let alone sort of the capacity to then think about leading a sort of community investment community share campaign, which involves all of the sort of different components that I mentioned earlier. So.
We're going to have to wrap it up there because I know we're already going over time. And thank you, Christopher, because I know we're opening like one of the most complex and interesting issues in British society, and we're at 2:03. But I just want to say thank you so much to all of our speakers, because I think it's really interesting to think of it on these two levels, on these like more societal and in how that reflects in your own organisations. And I'll share all the contact details, if that's okay, from our panelists and the materials that were shared today. So thanks everyone, and look forward to seeing you at our big event in May, which I'll also share the details for. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruby.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye-bye.